and thank you for taking an interest in our exciting mission, which we hope you will want to be a part of. I'm Danielle, a founder of the Micronation of Glamorgannwg, along with Lloyd, Vanessa and Mark, who is also trustee of the Cymru Community Trust, offering our people and Micronation legal protection. We are a group of free-thinking people who class ourselves as Indigenous to the land, and we stand under natural law. We are currently in the process of establishing ourselves as a micronation, thereby creating our own jurisdiction outside of the UK system, and we are working towards international recognition to officially establish this status. In this video, we will be looking at micronations, and first we'll look at what a micronation actually is. Micronations are often seen as nothing more than imaginary states ruled by eccentric people as a hobby, and though they claim to be independent states, most are considered harmless and akin to those claiming to be sovereign citizens. But micronationalism is far more diverse than this suggests, and in the years to come we may see several micronations, including Glamorgannwg, that have the people and skill sets to make the transition from this eccentrically viewed description to a full, internationally recognised sovereign nation status. The official definition of a micronation is an entity that claims to be an independent state but whose sovereignty is not recognised by the international community. However, there are many micronations that have gained some recognition. Liechtenstein and Vatican City are micronations, though they are known as microstates, and these are internationally recognised. However, we prefer the term micronation as opposed to state, as a state has different legalese connotations, being a political term that denationalises a country. So how do you form your own micronation and turn it into a sovereign state? The process is not set in stone, but it appears to briefly consist of the following process. You form your own micronation, you go through the motions that sovereign states go through, you obtain recognition by other internationally recognised nations, and most prospective states strive for recognition by the United Nations. Whilst the method of identifying sovereign states has changed over time, there is actually no foolproof method of identifying them. One of the main documents that appears to be used comes from the USA, where the states attempted to establish criteria for statehood. This is called the 1933 Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States and consists of 16 articles on what makes a sovereign state. According to Article 1 of the Convention, the state should possess the following qualifications: a permanent population, a defined territory, a government, and the capacity to enter into relations with other states. Article 3 is also of interest and states that the political existence of the state is independent of recognition by the other states. So the 1933 Montevideo Convention doesn't seem to mind that you're not recognised by any other states, as long as you meet the criteria of Article 1. However, ironically, recognition appears to be the main thing that prospective states strive for in order to prove their status. So according to our research, there are several ways we could become recognised. Here are some options that we're considering. Treaties and agreements, and this is where we send a notice of intention or declaration and relevant documents to various establishments, organisations and authorities to inform them of our nation and our standing. We can gain recognition through recognition by an already recognised nation. That's a bit of a mouthful. So we can network with other Indigenous and sovereign nations, micronations and peoples, such as with the Fellowship of Indigenous Peoples, which is explained in the Future Goals video, and also by attending events such as Microcon 2023, which I explain in a moment. We can also join various NGOs and associations that recognise and support Indigenous peoples and minority groups. There is a lot more to explore in this area, so a lot more research into the possibilities is needed. There are also several recognised journals, websites and articles on micronations, which micronations aspiring to become sovereign states might wish to get listed on. There's the academic journal, Shima, which serves as a forum for research into island cultures and insular communities, and they've produced 20 or so papers on 15 micronations. There is the Atlas Obscura, a magazine and travel company that specialises in travel to odd places across the world. They have written 24 articles on around 30 micronations. The Lonely Planet Guide to Homemade Nations, published in 2006, features detailed information on 50 or so micronations. There is the Micronations World Map, a user-edited online map that allows people to tag their micronations on parts of the globe. It lists around 60 micronations. And Wikipedia currently has about 95 micronations listed. The number of recognised nation-states has grown from 51 in 1912 to over 400 according to Wikipedia, and a philosopher called Ernest Gellner, 1925 to 1995, famously estimated in one of his books that there might be as many as 8,000 potential nation-states in the world, with micronations potentially making up much of this number. The nature of micronations and the ease with which they can be established and abandoned means it is difficult to tell how many micronations might currently be in the world. There are several lists on social media, Facebook, Reddit, and MicroWiki, which indicate that several hundred to a few thousand micronations may already exist, and some may well eventually go on to become internationally recognised as sovereign states. As I mentioned, there are also micronation conventions which enable founders to meet and exchange ideas, form treaties, gain exposure, and sign up new citizens. Microcon is one such convention. It was established in 2015 and holds a biennial convention of micronation governments. In 2019, Microcon was held in Hamilton, Ontario. The summit was attended by 111 people from 43 micronations. In 2022, which was postponed from 2021 due to COVID-19, Microcon was held in Las Vegas, Nevada, and was attended by 100 people from 30 micronations. Microcon 2023 will be in Chicago, Illinois, from June 29th to July 3rd, and in Ypres, in Belgium, August 11th to the 13th, at which Glamorgannwg founders will be delegates. The Montevideo Convention does not prescribe a minimum requirement as to territory or population. Therefore, there doesn't appear to be any constraints regarding the minimum size of a sovereign state. Some examples of currently recognised states are the Vatican City, which has just 0.49 square kilometres and 618 citizens, and only 218 within its boundaries. Monaco, which has 2.1 square kilometres and 39,520 citizens. There's Nauru, which has 21 square kilometres and 10,873 citizens. And in comparison, Kafili town is 278 square kilometres and has 181,075 population. So all of the above micronations are several times smaller than the market town of Caerphilly in South Wales. But do you actually need any territory? Well, it seems not, if politics are involved and it suits a major power to recognise you. Both Poland and Czechoslovakia were recognised by France in World War I, despite not having any territory. Several governments in exile set up in other countries' capitals in World War II after their countries were overrun by the Axis powers. And one of the international scams that actually works in our favour here is due to the supposed global warming. There is a view that sea levels will rise 1 metre by 2100, and many low-lying sovereign states will have to abandon their current territory. Several sovereign states have raised concerns as to whether they will be recognised if situated in another country's sovereign territory. What would happen to their culture and populations if they relocate to lands with another sovereign state? The UN Climate Change Conference has promised to address this issue and to lay down international laws protecting states in exile, meaning that having territory appears essential for state creation, but it does not appear to apply for the continued existence of a state. In fact, it was stated by a UN official on the BBC series How to Start Your Own Country that they were seriously looking into recognising virtual territory for such countries. However, in 2009, the Maldives approached Sri Lanka and India asking to buy land in anticipation of future needs. And in 2014, Kiribati purchased around 20 square kilometres on a Fijian island 1,500 miles away from its home as a security measure. There are entities such as the Sovereign Military Order of Malta, or the SMOM, which are states that have no territory. Recognised by previous popes due to being involved in the Crusade Wars, the SMOM relocated several times. Finally, in 1530, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V granted the island of Malta to them, where they operated as an international state, sending diplomatic representatives, signing treaties and the like, until 1798 when it was evicted by Napoleon I. The SMOM continues to exist but has not exercised jurisdiction over any territory since 1798. It currently operates from 2 buildings in Rome, enjoys diplomatic immunity and maintains diplomatic relations with 107 other states. It has permanent UN observer status and issues its own passport, stamps and coins. The Italian courts have repeatedly upheld its sovereign status. Looking at other micronations. Sealand is a micronation located off the English coast, whose territory is on a World War II man-made offshore platform in the North Sea, approximately 6.5 miles off the coast of Suffolk. In 1967, it was occupied and declared to be an independent state by Roy Bates. In 1968, British workmen entered what Bates claimed to be his territorial waters to service a navigational buoy near the platform. Michael Bates, son of Roy Bates, tried to scare the workmen off by firing warning shots from the former fort. As Bates was also a British citizen at the time, he was summoned to court in England on firearms charges following the incident. But interestingly, the court ruled that the platform was outside of British territorial limits, so they could not proceed, as it was outside UK jurisdiction. In 1975, Bates introduced a constitution for Sealand, followed by a national flag, a national anthem, a currency and passports. In 1976, the Sealand Prime Minister Alexander Achenbach and several others were arrested in Luxembourg and charged with selling false stamps, coins and engaging in a fraudulent business based in an imaginary country, which could mean a custodial sentence. Achenbach, in his capacity as Sealand Prime Minister, advised the Luxembourg officials holding him this would cause a diplomatic incident and said he would file a motion at the International Court of Justice in The Hague that Luxembourg had committed an act of aggression against Sealand. The officials were worried enough by Achenbach's claim to consult the British government on the status of Sealand, and they then decided to reduce the charges and just found the men guilty of a lesser offence of selling stamps and coins without a licence. In 2008, Stuart Hill declared Forwick Island, part of the Shetlands off the coast of Scotland, to be a British Crown dependency and thus not part of the UK or the EU. In 2008, there were no full-time residents or permanent structures on the island. Hill announced his intention to erect a structure on the island without planning permission. He travelled to and from the island on a small flat-bottomed plywood homemade boat. In July 2008, Hill announced that he was inviting companies to bid for oil exploration rights in Forvik's territorial waters. He claimed his intention was to illustrate to Shetlanders what they could achieve if they asserted their legal rights and similarly seceded from the UK. Hill sells citizenships for between £60 and £540. In 2008, he claimed that he had sold around 100 citizenships. Membership of Forvik is currently set at around £20 per annum to cover running costs. One of the most serious attempts to create a micronation that we have seen is Liberland. Liberland claims an uninhabited parcel of disputed land on the western bank of the Danube River between Croatia and Serbia. Both countries state that the parcel of land does not belong to them but belongs to the other. Liberland was created by Czech politician and activist Petr Jedlička. On 18th December 2015, Jedlička held an event at which he presented the first provisional government of Liberland and its ministers of finance, foreign affairs, interior and justice, as well as 2 vice presidents. Croatian and Serbian authorities have since blocked access to the area for those trying to enter Liberland. In an interview, Jedlička said he intended to operate on an open border policy. The goal of the Micronation, as claimed by its website, is to create a society where righteous people can prosper with minimal state regulations and taxes. The founders are inspired by countries like Monaco and Liechtenstein. There are plans for an official cryptocurrency called the Merit, and in an attempt to gain recognition at the UN, Liberland appointed 70 representatives in over 60 countries within a year of proclamation. There has been no official recognition of Liberland by the United Nations. However, many other micronations have recognized Liberland and set up diplomatic relations and discussed mutual recognition with them. Apparently, in 2017, Somaliland opened formal diplomatic relations with Liberland, giving a good example of microstate recognition. In a recent article, the Chicago Law School examined Liberland's claim to statehood in light of the criteria laid out by the Montevideo Convention and agreed that Liberland meets the Convention's criteria as a recognized international state. According to the author of the Chicago paper, Croatia's insistence that Liberland is part of Serbia constitutes a renunciation of Croatia's legal rights to Liberland. Conversely, the Serbian government's renunciation of its title to Liberland is a claim that transforms the legal status of the disputed land to terra nullis, a Latin expression meaning nobody's land. In both instances, the territory would belong to the first entity to claim it, in this case Liberland. However, because of the complicated history of the Croatian-Serbian border region, it may be difficult to ascertain who the land belongs to under international law. And a couple closer to home, the free borough of Llanrwst was a special privilege granted to the Welsh town of Llanrwst in 1276 by Prince Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, Llywelyn the Last, when he took the town from the English. Llywelyn was killed in battle in 1282, and the Principality of Wales was then annexed by Edward I of England. However, according to the town council, Llanrwst retained its independent status. Llanrwst is now a small town and community on the River Conwy in Conwy, Wales. The town has its own coat of arms and flag and a local motto, which is Cymru, Lloegr a Llanrwst, meaning Wales, England and Llanrwst. In 2019, the town mayor, Hugh Pays-Jones, said to journalists that as there is no record of the removal of the town status given to it by Llywelyn the Last, we are pleased to reaffirm it. Interestingly, in 1947, the town supposedly petitioned the UN Security Council for a seat in the General Assembly, arguing that Llanrwst was an independent state within Wales. The Llanrwst Historical Society have obtained proof of this petition, but unsurprisingly the UN claims it has no record of ever receiving it. And founded in 1977 by Richard Booth in what he describes as a a sincere attempt to shake off the bureaucratic grip of a central government which showed little or no practical interest in revitalising the clearly decaying market town. Richard conceived a publicity stunt in which he declared Hay-on-Wye to be an independent kingdom, with himself as its monarch and a national anthem written by Les Penning in 1977. The Micronation of Hay-on-Wye has subsequently developed a healthy tourism industry based on his literary interests. In 2005, he announced plans to sell his bookshop and relocate to Germany, and this led to a local MP, Roger Williams, saying that his legacy will be that Hay-on-Wye changed from a small market town into a mecca for second-hand book lovers, and this has completely transformed the local economy. So with all this information, let's look at how we can move Glamorgannwg forward as a micronation. And of course, we also have the status of Indigenous people, which adds another string to our bow, so to speak, as we can use either status depending on which is most appropriate for the situation. So the first step in creating a micronation is giving it a name, designing a flag, a national anthem, and drafting a constitution. Well, we already met these criteria in 2022. Next, to achieve a similar status to a sovereign state, a micronation needs to be operating in a similar way. For example, by issuing citizenship documents, passports, stamps, creating its own currency, forming a government, and be given out titles such as titles of nobility. By signing up new members and signing and witnessing their documents, we are already creating citizens of Glamorgannwg. They have the option of purchasing an Indigenous People's ID badge, which in theory recognises their citizenship. Whilst we issue ID cards, we will also be looking to issue either passports or evolve our current ID cards into documents that can be used to cross borders. We are currently trialling our own postal system with Glamorgannwg postal stamps with encouraging results. Further developments such as creating our own cryptocurrency or physical currency will enable the forward progression of our nations. We are forming a government and putting people into government roles. And we are also seeking to acquire land and have a permanent population living on that land. The main problem is where another state also claims that land and exerts its legal authority over it, then the new independent state cannot claim independence. Prince Leonard, who declared his farm in Australia the independent province of Hutt River, may have been the lawful owner of the land, but he did not possess sovereignty over that land despite his secession and declaration of independence. Therefore, buying land in Wales or elsewhere in the UK would not appear to satisfy this criterion, and even as claiming Indigenous people status would not appear to achieve this. However, I think that our specialist knowledge could aid us here, and we have several ideas on how we can approach this. Next is gaining recognition. It may be difficult to achieve UK recognition of Glamorgannwg in the shorter term, so mutual recognition with other micronations will be our first step. We could even seek to appoint diplomats in other recognised states, such as Liberland has done. In 2008, a South London father and son team of Terry and Jonathan Austin declared their house to be a separate jurisdiction from the UK, which they called the Empire of Australasia. They attempted to engage the UK government in negotiations, but initially they were ignored. However, in 2011, Tom Brake MP agreed on Jonathan's behalf to ask the then Foreign Secretary, William Hague, about the criteria required for the UK to recognise new states. No answer was forthcoming, and eventually the MP was asked by a journalist what the government had decided. He simply replied, in the typical politician fashion of not answering the question, that whilst he wished Mr. Austin luck with his venture, the UK government did not know where to set up the border controls. So, by not dismissing the fundamental proposal of a separate jurisdiction within UK territory, but instead using the lane technicality, it suggests that if this technicality was overcome, then the fundamental idea is actually feasible. and ultimately gain in United Nations recognition. This is obviously the ultimate goal, as UN recognition means most of the international community will also recognise us. While it is yet to be achieved by a micronation, there is a first time for everything, and the determination, motivation and intention of the individuals involved in our micronation should not be overlooked. This is therefore a challenge we hope to succeed in one day. Many micronations have achieved their objectives, even if they were as simple as drawing attention to themselves or to an issue of concern. In New Zealand, it declared itself as the Republic of Wangamomona in November 1989 in protest at being moved from one country to the next when regional council boundaries were redrawn. The town has continued to hold a celebratory Republic Day once a year, during which a vote for a president is held. The day has become a local festival day and attracts visitors from throughout the North Island. In 2001, the celebration became biennial, held in January to take advantage of the summer weather. In January 2021, it had over 1,000 visitors attend its Republic Day. The micronation can therefore be considered to have more than met its goal of bringing attention to its issue. One thing is clear to us: the future for micronations appears to be bright, and micronation successes will encourage further growth and interest in this sector. And if the micronation movement was to grow, we would basically be decentralising government, which is always a positive move, as the local people will regain and retain their own power and control. In short, micronations will persist, as there will always be those who believe they can do a better job of running a country than their governments. And we're confident that some of those people, such as us, the people of Glamorgannwg, have the determination and the skills to achieve it. If you want to know more, please get in touch through our website or come along to one of our community market and gathering days or Wednesday workshops, which will be detailed on our website and in our Telegram channel and Facebook group, the links for which are on the first page of our website. We look forward to welcoming you. Thanks for watching.